When I was 5 years old, I moved from my hometown of Sydney to the Middle East. I lived in the city of Dubai for the next 10 years. Now, I was what was known as a third culture kid. Now, not many people are familiar with this term, so definition. A third culture kid refers to kids who were raised in a culture outside of their parents' culture for a significant part of their developmental years. To me, there are two types of third culture kids, or TCKs. First, you have the grounded TCK, and this TCK tends to stay in one place, while dynamic TCKs don't. They city hop. Now, grounded TCKs have more time to develop a concrete culture amongst themselves, while dynamic TCKs don't. They soak up different parts of different cultures. Now, in terms of what it's like to be a TCK, they both have roughly the same experience, despite their differences. Now, I, along with my siblings, were grounded TCKs. We stayed in the same place for 10 years. Now, there are many different reasons for this third culture kid phenomenon to occur, but the top two you'll find are kids moving because of their parents' work or because they're refugees. And what you'll find is that the parents of these third culture kids usually do one of three things. They're either pilots, civil engineers, or oil workers. This is because these jobs seem to be in high demand in cities like Hong Kong, Singapore, Tokyo, Muscat, Riyadh, and of course Dubai. Now, you can be a TCK anywhere in the world, but I find that these cities kind of serve as hubs for these displaced kids, and it's where they seem to gather. And you'll also notice that all these cities seem to be in the Middle East and Asia, and a lot of the expats that are going to work in these cities are from the Western world, and they're bringing their kids. Now, what this does, it springs a setup of international schools teaching Western-specific curriculums to these displaced kids. And this brings these third culture kids together, and it creates an environment in which mostly teenage kids are forced to create a culture amongst themselves that differs from the culture they are living in and the native culture of their parents, thus creating a third culture. So, two examples of two international schools that were set up in the city of Dubai specifically for this purpose. Jumeirah English Speaking School and Dubai College. So this third culture that we create for ourselves, amongst ourselves, is usually a hybrid between the parents' culture, or the first culture, and the culture of the host, or the second culture. Thus creating a third culture that has elements of both of these cultures. Now, this culture that we create for ourselves is diverse, it's exciting, it's interesting, and you'd be lucky to be a part of it even for a short amount of time. So this was the situation that me and my peers found ourselves in, and many of my peers still find themselves in. So being a third culture kid is definitely a very unique experience, and I find that we learn this idea of impermanence. See, these third culture destinations or areas are very dynamic. People are constantly coming and going through them. And it is through this loss and gain of relationship that we learn this idea of impermanence. See, every year you will lose and gain at least 2 relationships. And this causes us to place value in the present, as we're never sure how long we will know someone or be with someone. Now, there's a quote by the 20th century philosopher Alan Watts. He says, "The only way to make sense of change is to plunge into it, move with it, and join the dance," end quote. So through each passing relationship, we learn to accept the fates in which we cannot change. We join the dance. And from a young age, we as TCKs understand the impermanence of relationship, which is something I believe not many people our age understand until they are older. And maybe they've left high school and all their friends go off to different parts of the world or the country, but for TCKs it's normal, they've been doing it all their lives. Which means that one thing we're very good at is saying goodbye. It becomes easy, it becomes natural, it becomes routine since we've done it so many different times to so many different people. But by far the hardest question to answer as a TCK is, where are you from? So this can be answered in one of two ways. Either you can go into a 30-second spiel trying to explain your situation, or simply say, I don't know. And I've often found that people cannot relate to this concept of not having a concrete home. So when it's brought up in conversation, it's when the conversation is over. But I want to ask for a raise of hands. Who was born in this country? Yeah. See, if you ask the same question in any international school like Jess or DC, no one would raise their hands. So this is a classic showcase of the diversity that you will find in these schools, and being a part of that culture, being a TCK, opens your mind to this diversity and allows you to appreciate cultures for what they truly are. Now, being a TCK kind of forces you to ask two different questions. Where is true home, if there is one to be found, and what does national identity have to do with it? And a lot of TCKs tend to struggle for an answer. Now, I'll come back to these two questions, but I want to talk about identity and TCKs. Now, undeniably, this experience was amazing, and I feel lucky to have been a part of it. But something that is often not mentioned within these communities is that with many, it causes an internal conflict of identity, as they are torn between their native identity and their TCK identity that they have created for themselves. They relate most with their TCK identity because it's what they know, it's what they identify with, and their native identity is no longer relatable to them. And many feel as if they're almost obliged to represent their native identity, but it doesn't feel right, and this is natural. Of course it wouldn't feel natural to feel a part of something that they left behind years ago, or in many cases never even knew at all. But I find this issue with identity is never really truly ignited until there is a change in home. See, once they move back to their native countries, the definition of home is questioned. They find these native environments are now completely foreign to them, as it's not what they have been around. They are used to these third culture environments. They understand them as it's been their emotional and social environment for all their life. It is their life. So they don't understand these native environments, and this can cause the rejection of national identity and also cause a longing to go back to the culture in which they truly feel a part of. Now, I've known many people that have moved from the city of Dubai. They go back every chance they get, every holiday, every 3 months, because they've told me that they no longer feel at home. And at the moment, I'm happy to say that I'm surrounded by people that have made Sydney my home. This was not always the case. And some TCKs may feel they are not accepted in their native countries. And to those people, I want to say it's okay, because maybe you can't change your situation, but in time, your situation will change, and you along with it. So acceptance. Why do we feel this need to be accepted in the first place? Well, like all of human nature, it's primal. See, when we were primal beings, we traveled in packs, because being in a pack was essential for survival. Being in a pack ensured that you would help being guarded while you slept, hunting us to not starve, and fighting off rival packs. So chances are, if you weren't accepted into a pack, you'd be dead on a mountain somewhere or on a ditch. And in the primal context, you usually couldn't choose who you grouped together with. It was simply a consequence of where you were born. But now you can. See, there is no need to feel scared of not being accepted into a certain group of people, because we are not primal beings anymore. Our life is not on the line. See, what I'm trying to say is that the culture you feel a part of is not fixed at birth, and me and many others like me are living examples of this. We are living examples that as human beings, we are not born with some chip in our brain that determines who we are or who we ought to be. That we are dynamic people, we can change and adapt, and I believe TCKs can do this better than most people, as we have the ability to reinvent ourselves. So I think we're in a position now to answer our two questions of where is true home, if there is one to be found, and what does national identity have to do with it? Well, the truth is there is no true home. See, home is wherever you feel the strongest emotional and social connection, and from first-hand experience, this is what I hold to be true. It's wherever you feel yourself, wherever you know, it's wherever you can relate to as an individual, because I believe that time and preference determine home. Since time secures a social connection, this combined with preference secures an emotional one, which means that home is not predetermined. So what does national identity have to do with it? Well, nothing or everything. See, since home is determined by time and preference, individual national identity may not fit this mold. A perfect example, the third culture kid. They don't feel as if they fit that particular mold. On the other hand, time and preference may well fit in with your national identity, and that's great as well. But as human beings, I don't believe that we're defined by words on a passport or a birth certificate. And that in this modern society, because nationality is simply a social construct. Now I know it's a simplistic way to look at it, but if I was born and raised in Russia, I'd be Russian. If I was born and raised in Italy, I'd be Italian. And traditionally, nationality is used to group together people that were born in the same area. And that's okay. But we shouldn't feel as if we have to be defined by this if we don't want to. Because in this modern society, I believe we have the right to shape our own identity in whichever way we as individuals see fit. Thank you.